Have you ever heard of the Agapemonites? They were a Victorian sex cult led by this old man, Reverend Henry Prince. Henry Prince was born in 1811 and he later trained to be an Anglican priest. He was apparently charismatic and persuasive, and he believed quite passionately that the world was going to end and that he was the one to save humanity. Of course, he believed that he was the physical manifestation of God himself and that everyone should follow what he says. Of course, the Anglican Church soon banished him because, of course, he was nuts. But that wasn't before he'd already started gathering a following. Unsurprisingly, he targeted wealthy patrons, particularly wealthy women, and he persuaded them to give up their worldly goods so that they could be righteous. As a result, many of his favoured followers were women who had given up lots of money to him, and then in return they became his spiritual wives. And so he started marrying these women and, of course, having sex with them, saying that he could purify them in doing so. And of course, the more money that was donated to him, the higher up they went in his favour, and they were considered the most righteous. His followers wanted to be the most righteous because that meant that they would be guaranteed a place in heaven. Unsurprisingly, Prince started to amass quite a large fortune, and so he then commissioned the building of this house and that chapel in Suffolk. It was named Agapemone, and that is translated from Greek meaning the abode of love. The house had a number of bedrooms to house his favoured women or spiritual wives, and the grounds also included the chapel, stables, a gazebo, cottages, and this was all set in a really nicely landscaped park. And of course, high walls were erected around, both to keep the followers in and to keep prying eyes out. These are two women apparently from within the cult, and it became quite normal for Prince to start separating his followers, who were both men and women, from their families so that his influence could be even greater. He would also separate husbands from wives, and he would not pay any of them for the labour that they did on the farms and within the house. Of course, this didn't all go unnoticed, and there were a few scandals along the way in which daughters with money were encouraged to join so that they could donate their money to the greater good. So families, of course, hated this. They tried to get in contact with their daughters and sometimes abducted them and put them in mental asylums as a result. As with all cult leaders, Prince became convinced of his infallibility. He truly believed that he was the manifestation of God and that he could do no wrong. He actually began to think that he was immortal. He also persistently claimed that he was the Holy Ghost and that it was his duty to bring heavenly love to earth and to purify virgins. Whereas before, when some of these women joined the cult willingly and were willingly happy to have sex with him, this changed. When Prince started to think that by having sex with a virgin would purify that girl and allow her to get into heaven, that's when things changed into rape. I'm now going to issue a trigger warning because some of this is unpleasant. So, in 1856, Prince devised an elaborate scheme to enable him to fulfill his sexual obsessions. He called it the Great Manifestation or the Divine Purification, and he decided that it was his duty to deflower a virgin, a beautiful young virgin, in order to save her and purify her, and this happened. So, in front of a congregation, he committed ceremonial rape. So he had full sexual intercourse with a 16-year-old girl called Zoe Patterson, and this was done on top of a billiard table in front of the congregation, who were apparently singing hymns. The poor girl was described as looking hypnotised. Prince said that no child would be born from that union because he was the manifestation of God and he was purifying her. And so when a child was born 9 months later, he said that it was a devil's child, was not his, because he could only purify women. Of course, this did cause a scandal. People knew about this, people had heard about it, and many of the cult followers started to leave at this point. Of course, for those that stayed, Prince gave them crazy titles such as anointed ones, angel of the lamb trumpet, or the 7 witnesses. And Zoe Patterson, the girl that he had raped, became his bride of the lamb. Life at the abode of love became more and more insane as time went on, and we don't know exactly what went on because it was all happening in private. But what we do know is that Henry Prince was never held accountable for his actions and that he did live in luxury. Although he later claimed that he was immortal, he did eventually die an old man. He died at the age of 88 in 1899. Unfortunately though, the cult did carry on and it wasn't actually dissolved or disbanded until 1956.